The French Revolution began in 1789 and ended in the late 1790s. It began with the proclamation of the Third Estate as National Assembly in 1789 and ended with the coup d'état of Napoleon Bonaparte in 1799. France was an absolute monarchy ruled by King Louis XVI. The people of France was divided into three categories: the First Estate, the clergy; the Second Estate, the nobles; and the Third Estate, the common people. To change from estates is difficult and near to impossible. France was deeply in debt due to 7-year war and funding the American Revolution. Half of the national budget was used to pay this debt. In order to pay this debt, the king raised taxes and the Third Estate had to pay the most of these taxes. There were famine and bread prices raised rapidly, which was huge conflict for the people of France. King Louis was a weak king and did not notice how bad the country was doing for the commoners. This caused for riots, and hence the revolution commenced. The king was killed and Napoleon rescued the country. There are multiple causes for the revolution. Firstly, the political causes will be discussed, followed by social and then economical causes. Now, the political causes. Louis XV passed the throne to Louis XVI. When this occurred, the economic condition of France became unstable. Louis XVI was constantly influenced by his queen Marie Antoinette, who always interrupted in state affairs. She used her wealth in a selfish manner. The king believed that he was designated by God. No one could question him, and he thought he was always right. Therefore, he spends the money aimlessly without caring about the real necessity of the country while people were dying. People that were against his decision were pressured by the king to not be against him. If people remained against, they would end in prison. There was a lot of inequality and discrimination during this time. The law were not the same for rich people and poor people when they committed a crime. No one was able to publish a book or an article in the newspaper without approval of the king. Social causes. The social division of France was unequal. Depending on which state you are, part of your quality life varied drastically. The French society was divided into three categories: the clergy, nobles, and the common people. The First Estate consisted of the clergy due to their prestige, influences, and their wealth. 1/4 of the territory of France was owned by the First Estate. By owning this estate, the money they received of taxes was abundant. The First Estate is divided into the high and low clergy. The high clergy had a larger amount of wealth in comparison to the lower clergy, and they used to live in Versailles along with the king. They were the ones that obtained the most benefits since they gained all the income of the taxes, therefore they had the luxurious lives. The Second Estate consisted of the nobles who were owners of the large territories and farmers who worked for the nobles within these territories. The nobles received the taxes of the farmers who were working on these territories. What the farmers paid to the nobles were called feudal rights. In general, the nobles were the first people who had the first job in the government, in the church, and in the military forces. The majority of the population of France were part of the Third Estate. The Third Estate consisted of the common people, which was the majority of the population of France. At the top of this class was the bourgeois, which consisted of professional, the industrial, and the commercial people. Due to their occupation, they had a good living status. The bourgeois who caused the French Revolution. The majority of Third Estates were farmers and craftsmen. Even though these people had the least amount of income and the worst quality of life, they had to pay the most taxes. The third class were the least privileged since no one cared about, and they had the worst living conditions. They were tired of these living conditions, and therefore they pushed France into the French Revolution. These people were against the king, and the French Revolution commenced. This is one of the main causes of the French Revolution. Economic causes. France caused an economic crisis due to the foreign wars of Louis XVI. Louis XVI was devoted to wars and decided to join many. Due to this, the national debt increased rapidly. Also, another aspect for this debt increasing is due to the construction of the royal mansion at Versailles. The money was spent incorrectly and this caused France to be declared as bankrupt. The only solution was to raise taxes. The high taxes were paid mainly by the Third Estate, which also consisted of farmers. Farmers became poorer as time enhanced, and everyone was affected by this. It was difficult to produce a crop due to a bad weather condition. The little food that was produced was not enough to recover the famine. the prices started to increase and the quality of the farmers started to decrease rapidly. Farmers still had to pay taxes, which was difficult to do. There was no food and people were not able to pay the taxes, and this resulted in many deaths. Due to the lack of crops, people started dying more frequently. The king and the higher class did not aid the farmer in the difficult situation they were facing. As a result, there was an economic crisis which was affecting the third estates, and this was one of the main causes that led French Revolution. There was a decline of the commerce and the industry which led to internal custom barriers. This mainly happened due to the lack of production, which affected the exchange trade, reduced wages, and there was a lack of work available. Revolutionary France then proceeded to go through many different governments, many of which were despotic and dictatorial. After the revolution and the Napoleon Wars, the country's feudal system was abolished, where no nobility owns the land. After the kings beheaded, France has stopped being a monarchy and converted into a democratic country in which people have more rights and equality. Social equality and socialism became popular ideas. Population started to have a better role at the time, including the establishment of new laws. Old rules taxing the poor and privileges from the rich has been revoked. This led to completely dissolve and develop the equality of people, especially the poor, to have a better standard of living, as more jobs are available with less taxes to pay, and among others. The workers, artisans and peasants were given equal rights. People could find different ways to pay off their debts instead of going to prison, and women in this stage also played an important role into participating to society. Although slaves did no longer exist and was abolished in all French colonies, poverty still remained due to simply not having enough money available to deal with such an appalling problem. Capitalism became the new economic system after the persecution of King Louis, in which people can run their own business and boost the economy from an important aspect of free market in the country, leading to innovation and price control. The outcome of the revolution inspired different countries who were in the same situation as France to follow the idea of revolution and to take action and fight the rights of people. The metric system was another effect of the revolution, which was later adopted throughout Europe and some Asian countries. Finally, in 1804, Napoleon crowned himself Emperor of France from propaganda victories and with his popularity nearly at its zenith. The French Republic was over and the French Empire had begun. France was transformed into a new form of nation and government, one considered almost opposite to the hopes of many revolutionaries. This wasn't a pure megalomania by Napoleon, because he had to work hard to reconcile the conflicting forces of the revolution and establish a degree of peace. He had to get the old monarchies working with revolutionaries and try to get everyone working together under him. During the Napoleonic Wars, he has given people fairness and opportunities with his power and leadership. This built a France a superior country than it was before.